Okay, welcome to Runtime Reverie. I've got a special guest here, Nigel Thorne, who Craig has worked with. Vincent's. Where are you currently, Vincent? You're still in Korea, aren't you?
Yeah, this is still Korea.
Still living the dream. I'm back in Australia, and we've got Nigel. So I've worked with Nigel for a number of years, and I think you've always wanted to get onto the show, but we had a bit of scheduling conflict, so we've
you
found
guys
some time.
record exactly when I do my stand-ups every day. Yeah,
It wasn't intentional.
that's all right. I don't feel hurt. It's fine.
So we somehow stuffed up the calendar, and Nigel said he could join, and we thought, oh no, we're trying to get we didn't want Nigel to come, please welcome. I've actually been wanting you to come on for a while, so yeah,
great. Well, it's nice to be here.
Yeah, I've missed working with you, Nigel, because Nigel and I work in complete opposite fashions. Like, as polar opposite as you get. Like, I remember at one place we worked at, I spent a couple of weeks just knocking out a project, and at the end of it, Nigel's gone, yeah, but is that service really what you intended? Is it really doing only one job? And it's gotten more philosophical, and I've just looked at him and I've gone, I hate you, you're right, we've got to do it again. But you're wrong, because you're not right either. So we spent the next 2 weeks designing it up properly, and I've gone, actually, I miss that. Those opposite ideas really, you need different perspectives at work. Otherwise, it always ends up the same.
Yeah, it's very kind of you to say. I enjoy working with you too. I think you're right. We have very different approaches to things. I think you're very proactive, turn a handle, get it out, get it done. And I'm sort of, more strategical, maybe? I don't know. Like at the moment, I'm working on a thing where I'm like, there's two approaches to it. There's like, we can stick a thing behind a Lambda and just chuck it up there and it'll scale and, it should be all right. And I'm sort of going, well, actually, is there a way that we could structure the data differently so that the actual processing work is much, much less? So it's like, trying to solve the same problem, get the thing done faster, but in completely different ways.
Hey, so you two are working together currently?
No, we used to.
Yeah, before COVID times, actually, so it was actually when we were in the office, which was great because, there's that high-tech piece of equipment known as a whiteboard, which was great, where you could literally draw architectural diagrams out, get it done. And, I miss that about working in the office. Work's changed a little bit.
I think the thing I'm missing the most is pair programming. I think there's various ways to try and do it online. I'm not happy with any of the tools I'm using at the moment for that. So just that back and forth of passing the keyboard back between each other, I'm just missing that. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, no, we do it as best as we can. We still get that fixed, but you know what? We still got to go in the office once a month just to remind ourselves that commuting is terrible.
Yeah, it makes your heart sing, doesn't it? Being on that train.
Yeah. So you're working on performance-oriented problems at the moment, Nigel?
Yeah. It's one of those things I gravitate towards. I think it's interesting within a team, especially when you get a mix of different skill sets within the team, and the product is saying, look, we need new features, so we're constantly pushing to get new features added. It's very easy for code to get you get more and more of the same added to it, and it can slowly, just because people will do the same thing, do it the way it's been done before, and sometimes as a result things grow organically without having some sort of overarching structure to them. And I think that's usually fine. You need to have a moment where you go, well, actually there's enough gravitational pull here that this should collapse into some concept, right? And then so sometimes you end up like going back through code and like pulling out what exactly is the underlying theme within this code base that makes it work. And in doing that frequently, you also find like people will make building blocks, and then they'll use the building blocks that are there to solve a problem. And then you'll go, hang on, but that building block, like it's like there's a Homer Simpson episode where he's trying to get some ice cream, so he goes to the fridge and he wants chocolate ice cream, so he opens up a tub of Neapolitan ice cream and there's no chocolate, so he tosses it to one side and opens up another one, and it's another Neapolitan completely full except for no chocolate, and he just repeats that process over and over again, and then he goes, Marge, we need more Neapolitan ice cream, right? It's this it's like people will use the thing they know about. Like, oh, there is only Neapolitan ice cream. I just, and so you just waste so much. Like it's like when you go, how many items are in this list? And so it'll go through and it'll count all the items and it'll go, oh, there's 4,372 of them. And you go, great, is that bigger than one? Like, is that bigger than zero? And they go, yes, okay, then I can do my thing. You're like, why did you count it? Right? But that was the building block you were given, like the ability to count a list, as opposed to, is there anything in the list? Right? Yeah, and there's lots of opportunities to improve performance just by thinking, well, why do you need this information? What are you trying to do with it? Yeah.
Well, the first part is to actually recognize the problems there, right? Because like you weren't here last time, Nigel, but some people made fun of me that our build process was taking an hour and a half, which is not true. I measured it was an hour 40.
Wow.
And it was you just inherit these things and you just accept that that's the way it is. And then I've gone back after recording and I've just gone, all right, people made fun of me. I'm going to look and see where all the time's taken. Then you just realize people have just added things and integrated it time after time. We're down to 15 minutes now, right? And I think the natural gravity, and you start to get a vibe for it of where it's at. And I think the actual answer is probably about the 7-minute mark, and then the thinking really starts to go, how can I get that down to 1 or 2 minutes? That would be really good. Yep. And, start getting into caching strategies. But the whole problem set was, you sit there, you look at the pipelines, you look at the stage steps, and you just go, why? Why are we doing that there? And then this over. And then you just go, the answer is always, well, you know what? We're not doing that anymore. It's gone. And so it was just an exercise in just killing things. That gets you 90% of the way there. And you're just striving for simplicity. If you get to simplicity, then it's there. But everything else was just a general integration. I need this, so I'm going to add it on. I need that, I need to add it on, rather than trying to find that simple approach. And that's a different modern skill programmers that I see coming these days than the ones that possibly when I first started, doing early C, Pascal, those sorts of things where it was, none of this stuff actually existed. So it was always start with a text editor to write your code. Heck, Pascal didn't even have multiple file support. And these days it's more about integrating off-the-shelf solutions for all the other parts and doing it. And there's that bit in the middle that's sort of a bit lacking these days, which I think you were reminiscing on, weren't you, Vincent?
Well, my main thing is that I remember like being in school and then pretty much like we were only taught one aspect of software development, which is programming. But like all the things that we're talking about like doing at work these days, none of them are taught us in school, whether it's in computer science or any other classes, really. So I feel like there's like a big disconnect. And I feel like if I was taught all those things at school, I would probably change major. That would have been a good chance for me to decide like, okay, this is not for me. I want to go to art major, or like completely different.
So which things are the things you're doing where you feel you're contributing value and like using your skills, and which things do you feel are the wasteful activities, or the bit that feels like incidental complexity versus inherent complexity?
Things that I feel like are creative, and I really do feel like I'm bringing value a lot. But like now I'm talking outside of work. Like when I'm creating a game for a game jam, or I'm just like having fun myself, like making games and putting out into the world. I think it does have value because people play my games, and then they seem to enjoy it. Okay, so that's some value. When I'm not putting values is like if I was doing what Craig described, like just going into the build and then looking like, okay, why is this so slow? Oh, I have to remove this. That somebody added. Like, why did I do that? Oh, I have to remove this. Those kind of things. I don't feel like that's adding value. That's basically undoing somebody's work that was kind of cluttering in the first place, or like kind of cleaning somebody's mess. Well, I guess it is adding value, but why is it there in the first place? Sure. I don't get that.
I think when you've got teams working on the same artifact, that inherently you end up with technical debt or like a non-optimal solution, right? Because it's unavoidable, I think, because you end up with like, I think part of your goal as software developers is to build the code into a model of your understanding of the problem domain and get it to solve your problem. And as you learn new stuff and you get those aha moments about your problem domain where you as a person go, oh, actually, I didn't realize that before. Now I get it. You've now got a concept in your head that's a much better model of it than your code is, right? And so you've just invented technical debt by the fact that there's a discrepancy between how you understand it and how the code is modeling it. And if you've got a team of people, they've all got different levels of understanding and different aspects of the problem they understand, there's no way that model is going to be the cleanest, simplest representation of that, unless like you capture all that and get it in the code. And I think unless you're doing something like mob programming or something where like everyone's contributing to that at once, I just don't think you're going to end up with the same model in everyone's head.
No,
Also,
it's not possible, even in your own head, right? Because that implies that you know everything, you know, like right at the start, and you don't. You learn as you go through, but you evolve as a programmer too. Like the number of times I've gone through code and that I'm working on and going, oh, what idiot made that? And you click on like, that was me. Right? And you just
I was thinking that with your build pipeline, did you look through the YAML file for that and it all said Craig and you're like, oh.
Yeah. We will not mention that, but probably it was me. You know, like you do things and they're not perfect sometimes, right? So you just have to accept better along the way. And,
say it so, Craig.
Yeah, and you know, but you can have some code that actually adds a lot of value that's not pristine and perfect and all of those, right? And it's a difference in mentality too, right? There's that programming that brings you joy and is, you know, pure programming, you know, like doing small things, you know, like the things that I remember learning was, you know, how to build your own algorithms and designing that. You don't do that on your day job, right? You don't get paid for that. And to me, it was the same analogy as artists versus graphic designers. You know, like, you know, one is a freedom expression of creativity and the other is I'm doing something for a particular job to get a particular result. And I still like that analogy for some of the programming tasks we do.
Yeah, the part of the problem is I think that people have this concept in their head of how fast something is, and they like usually like totally wrong. And that's where like all this like problem of like over abstraction and over engineering happens. So yeah, I think things are a lot faster than people actually realize. Like often, because like Nigel and Craig, like we're all consultants, so that's sort of the interesting. If it wasn't evident, like what we often do is go into tricky projects and try and make things a bit better. Like often what I'd do is just like do the naive thing. Like often like what people are doing, like what Craig was talking about before with the build pipeline, like no one was brave enough to take this like step out. And it's like what Nigel was saying before, I think before, you know, like why this thing that just gets done all the time, like, you know, it's like my bad description of some religions, like why do we sacrifice the goat every autumn? Oh, it's because my father did sacrifice the goat. Oh, and because his grandfather did that, and because he, you know, we just sacrifice the goat. We don't. Why are we actually doing this thing? No one really knows. And so there's just such a pressure in the industry to go from junior to so-called mid to so-called senior, and often in that sort of middle ground, people are not wanting to like stick their neck out and look a bit foolish. Like, oh no, I thought I'm trying to become senior here. If I get rid of this like thing that's sacred, I'm like, I've outed myself as this like person who doesn't know what's going on. But often everything's just a bit complicated and
but you get comfortable with looking foolish after a while.
Exactly.
I've been interviewing a bunch of people recently, and then one of the things I noticed is within our industry, you go, I've worked somewhere a couple of years and then I move on. Right? People jump around a fair bit, and it's interesting when they move on, they get and they go start somewhere new. They'll go, oh, okay, this isn't how we used to do it in my previous place, right? And sometimes that's it for them. Like they go, I'm going to drive change because it's not the same as what I'm used to. And when you push them and say, well, but why is what you're trying to push towards better? They actually don't have that backing to understand it. They just go, well, it worked for us here. and that's how it should be done. And you're like, but why, right? Whereas people with more experiences will go, oh well, actually, well, this is the trade-off that's happening, and this is why this is better in this scenario, right? But it's rare. It's quite often the people that you've got they say they're seniors, they've got all this experience, but they actually don't know why the thing they're doing is the way that it should be done, and sometimes they play it in the wrong context. And,
but you have to do that, Nigel, right? How else are you going to learn that that's not the way it works, right? So the skill is actually in the trying and failing. Right?
Yeah, right.
Taking out that self-reflection of going, oh, that didn't work so good. And sometimes it doesn't come at that point in time. Sometimes it comes years later, and, to me, the evolution of going from a junior to a senior, like the labels don't matter much, right?
No, there's a mindset switch though, right? And I think one place I worked at, we had these two guys that were both at that level of like they've done it for a bit. They think they've understood like we know what we're doing here now, right? We can do it our way.
We
right?
can build anything.
Yeah, right. And so they got given a project to work on this tool, and they just architected it with the most strange, convoluted architecture ever. But it was like. And it was, I knew it was going to happen, right? It was these guys have to have some rope to go and find out what things that they think people are doing wrong are actually done that way. And so by having their own thing to play with and then giving them a safe place to fail, all right, they were able to then get it out of the system and go, oh, I see, and get that feedback loop. I think like feedback is such an important thing, and you have to do it in a way that it's safe.
Safe and often. Right.
Yeah.
If you wait too long for the lesson, then you've wasted, a year of your life and everyone else's, and you haven't got there. But if you can do it regularly, that's a good thing. And be celebrated for recognizing that it's not working and changing your mind. Often that's the sticking your neck out part and being comfortable with looking like a goose. But not easy to come by. But that evolution of going from, some junior, senior, and then beyond is that mentality shift of everything's a technical problem to, how do you collaborate to, it's all a problem of how you think and, work with others to then you start going, actually, it's the problem itself. Like if you can get rid of the problem in its entirety and do the simplest thing that can possibly work, because as programmers, we just dive straight into programming mode, right? Writing a solution when you go, like, one of those ones was how do we get more people on our thing? And we start writing software and features and things to bring it in. And you go, or we could have printed stickers and gone down to the local shopping center, which would have been far more effective. But we don't seem to think that way. But that's where you really got to go up a level.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I'm going to get some Runtime Reverie stickers and hand it out at the shopping center.
I'll put one on my laptop, definitely.
We should make some, actually.
Yeah, we should.
I just want to go back to Nigel, I think, strength, which is there is this sort of natural thing of where guess like stuff has become so productized, and there is a lot of off-the-shelf stuff, and like anyone, like not really anyone, I actually think the average dev is pretty good, but like generally like anyone can sort of build anything. But then you have this like mess. You just have this ridiculously huge mansion with like 15 bedrooms and like it's just like 17 swimming pools. And what I've seen Nigel be really good at is he looks at the bigger picture. He's not just like looking at because what sort of happened as well, I think, is that we have these little vertical teams. Like we've got a little designer, a little product manager, and then like 6 devs, and they like build out this little arm of the product. And then they strengthen this bit, and then someone else goes and strengthens this bit. And so what I've seen Nigel do is he just like look at the big picture, zoom out a bit, and then look at the fundamental like architectural, how things are sort of mapping conceptually, like you're talking about, but just like also just like simple schemas and how the data's stored and is moved about. So I think like you need that sort of there's not just like one way to do things, obviously, like that's a sort of truism, but like I just think you need multiple avenues here, and I think I just want to highlight that sort of big picture look at things.
That's very kind of you. I think I think I lean into my my weaknesses, right? So I don't have the best memory, and I don't, and complex systems are hard. So I try and find the inner complexity, inner simplicity, so that I can understand it better and reason about it. So yeah, that's something I'm always striving for. So it comes across as, you know, oh, Nigel found a simple solution, but that was the only thing I could do, was to come up with a simple solution, because I'm not clever enough to come up with a hard one.
So, you know, like, let's go back to the idea of education, right? Like, in the beginning, you were in school, you've only thought like to program, create new stuff, create more stuff, solve solution through software. But I'm thinking like, perhaps like maybe that's where the problem lies. You know, what if we were taught like all the other aspects of software engineering, such as the idea that, you know, you don't always need to make things more complex. If you simplify a system and you breaking down to the more basic level, make it more understandable, and make it so that everybody, let's say in the classroom, like thinks like, okay, now I understand this more. Maybe if that was the goal, rather than, you know, you write your own little program and it works, then perhaps, you know, we would, software engineering as a whole would grow into a world where we would stop having like those like weird systems that are incompatible with each other. And like right now, like every time like two libraries, we have to work with them, like they don't work for some reason, and we have to ask ChatGPT or Google Bard to figure out like what is the magic hack. Oh yeah, there's this line that I need to put there, and then the line actually doesn't really make any sense at all when you think about the whole thing.
Yeah, well, you find a path that works for you and you reapply it, right? So like a lot of my code I go into in another module, and I spend most of my time just getting rid of Lodash, right? Because someone knows Lodash, that's a library, it has to come in, and you just go, no, it doesn't. It's a one-liner in JavaScript now. It's off you go and fix that up. But
Lodash was my pick of the week. Oh.
Right, you know, that's another thing, you know, like the software engineering culture has been grown into a world where people think like software engineering is all about like, you know, for every single small thing that you do, like for example, like figure out if a number is odd or even, I'm gonna download this library. And, like
I've frequently found myself looking at people's libraries and then using them as inspiration, I guess. You can almost frequently you go, well, okay, library solves this problem, and I need this problem solved, right? So you can find like the bit of code inside the library that does solve that bit of the problem, and just copy that bit out.
Yeah, half the time it's 99% is the npm packaging and build stuff to stick it onto npm, especially in JavaScript world, and then you go, it's a file with like one class in it or something. I can redo that in my way of doing it. And sometimes it's a generic problem tool, like you only need like a small element within the larger element of all the features, and you're actually only using one little bit. You go, actually, that's just one function. You know, and open source is fantastic for educating people on what's possible, but not necessarily what's pleasurable in a coding sense. You know, like what's simple to maintain, own, what's important to you.
Is that something that you think that we're sort of setting up these like stereotypes here, but like someone more junior might go, well, if I use the open source package, it's maintained, it's up to date, it's going to get the security patches. But as someone with a bit more experience, you're like, I can understand this code. It's actually, I don't have to worry about updating it. Like there's actually a lot of pluses.
There's a skill in that, right? Of what to apply, when to build, when not to build. It's not always simple. You know, what's core business and what's not core business. I mean, there's the very small, like we're talking functions and the small elements. And don't worry, me and Nigel would argue on the small elements all the time, right? But then you get up, and then there's the bigger aspects, like where Nigel was loving to do was to look at the problems and the solutions that were there and trying to find the good ways forward. And I would tap him on the shoulder and go, you do that, bud. I'll go off and change the business. All right. All right. I'll go work on the problem itself. And then it's you know, skill wise, you got to start working your way all the way up the tree, out of the thing, into the problem space, look outside the computer, look at what you're trying to do and find the beauty in that, and then come back down to the very small. You know, if you don't execute it well on the very small, you'll have poor execution all the way up the chain. as well. But that is the evolution that goes through. It's not easy to do those things.
You're assuming that this is like a way all software engineers evolve, like always in a good way. But I'm thinking like software engineers, they evolve in a way that the opposite way also. Like the more they evolve, the more they think, oh, I'm getting lazy about doing stuff. Whenever I want to do something small, I'm just gonna pick a library. I don't really need to look too much into it because I assume that it's there, so it works, right? And then they create those monolith, like giant monsters of big dependencies.
Sure.
I think
one of the things I often find with software developers when they're discussing like what's the right way to do something is that they two people can vehemently argue that they're both the right. Like you go, well, using a library is so much faster to get something going, and why would I try and understand it where there's a library that does it for me, right? Versus people that go, well, if you don't understand it, then you don't know what the ways it can fail are, and you should really get good understanding. But there's these two very opposite sides, I guess, but they're both right? And it's all context, and it's like the like if you're in a startup and you're just trying to find product market fit, right? Your goal is to optimize for doing as many experiments as you can as fast as possible, throw shit against the wall and see what sticks, right? And if you're going, well, how should I TDD this and architect it and whatever, right? Unless that stuff is allowing you to experiment faster, it's actually getting in the way of what you're trying to do, right? And so grabbing things that off the shelf that do a thing and then just wrapping them in some script that makes it work is great to get your experiments up and running, right? But you wouldn't want to live with it forever. So and as soon as you're in that state where you're going, look, I don't want to limit how many libraries I've got because every time a library changes, we have to do a risk analysis against the right? Oh, which is true, you have to do that stuff. But further on, you've got lots of users and you can break people by having your software go down. Then those things are both appropriate, but in the right context. And it's funny when people argue about what's the right thing to do without mentioning their context they're coming from.
Yeah. Well,
I think this. Just to go what you were saying, Vincent. Like I think there's been. Are you all familiar with like jQuery? So like jQuery.
No, never heard of it, Patrick.
jQuery, the sort of the pitch of jQuery is that the like JavaScript is like not very like consistent between browsers. Like you had Internet Explorer, and I think Netscape was sort of dead, but you had the different Safari and stuff, and they all work sort of slightly differently. And it gave you this like consistent API, and it made things a bit nicer because the DOM APIs really suck, and so it just made everything like really pleasant, much more easier to use. But then this thing happened when someone would search for a JavaScript question and they would get a jQuery answer on like Stack Overflow. I think sort of what has happened maybe is that there's been a jQueryification of like everything. Like you look at any problem and you go, okay, I want to talk to an API or like, an HTTP API or like do anything. And it's like, you're not going to just go with what's built in. It's like, no, I have to find the right library to do this thing. Yeah. It's like, wait, why do you need to do that? Like, because if you do it the built-in way, it's going to have problems, going to be wrong, and you're not going to be like senior. Like you need to. The industry always goes towards these like libraries for some.
But most people search for answers based upon the problem that they have, and they operate in traditional larger tech companies. That's where most people can earn a good living, and but that's not every sort of scenario, right? You don't often get to choose your frameworks, the thing that you're doing, and you're just looking for the answers of what you currently got. Like, now, every problem solved by React, no matter how small it could possibly be. But if that's what you're working in and that's what you're doing, that's what people like to answer with. But what Vincent's saying as well is that, there's, assuming all tech companies are a particular way, right, and all career growth should be in a certain way, it doesn't have to be that way. You can choose your own adventure, right? Like, how often do you see people after they get to senior, their next level up is to go to some form of management of some sort, and the first thing they give up is their last 20 years of coding, right? And then after 5 years, they actually can't code very much anymore, but they're just making decisions on how the code should be going forward in the future, and over time, those decisions become worse in quality because they're still not doing it. So you can choose different paths. You can choose to work on smaller things. It's just, how do you survive in life? You still need to pay the rent. You still need to earn something, and you still want to do something you love. Sometimes you have to get it outside of work, and sometimes you've got to actually just look at things differently.
Yeah, I think that's more like the view on the individual level. I was also thinking that you know, like as all the collective, like pretty much everybody contributes together to work. I really think that the software world itself could have been a lot more friendly, because like all of you are asking like, oh yeah, there's two ways of thinking, you know. People just love to just write their own stuff, or some people like to bring libraries together, and then it's very useful, you know, like when you want to come up with something quick, like you put all those things together and then you try it and it works. Actually, for me, that's not the experience at all. Like when you bring a bunch of libraries together, like 99% of the time it doesn't work, and then you have to spend like bunch of time like trying to fix that by doing random things. And this kind of thinking where like you know, this idea that sometimes you want to do something, you see something that works, that is claims to work, and you bring it in, and like the assume thing is that it's not going to work, and you have to do some weird random stuff. Now it's very common in software.
Yeah, there's this thing, right, where you like the whole point of using the library is to give you a productivity win.
Right.
Oh, we'll save so much time because it's thought about the problem, solved all the stuff. But then to integrate the two, like you're saying, like, oh, to actually get this library to like work in CI and to work in everyone's dev environments and to work blah blah blah, it's like can take like over a week.
They're trade-offs, right? There's you've got problems. Like, even assuming you got it all sorted out and it's all working and it's fine, right? You added some authentication library and now you can log in, you've got things, right? It doesn't, software doesn't just exist and be perfect forever. You know, there's not a lot of software like that. Even Unix utilities still change and evolve over time, right? So if you had a perfect integration and something off the shelf, it will eventually die. It'll eventually be out of date, and you've got to change it. So what's right for now is not right forever. It's the best bet you've got right now to get to the next stage and go forward. I think the biggest danger we have is not revisiting how things, you know, we evolve, our ideas change, our implementations change.
Here's the thing, now you're accustomed to those kind of things, and you're saying like, yeah, that's how things goes, you know. When there's a software out, for sure it's gonna die out within maybe 1 or 2 years, or I don't know how long you expect, but the assume thing is that as soon as you get something, it's gonna die out. But look at things around the world, like okay, cars, they die out, but actually they do have like pretty long lifespan of like I don't know, a lot of tools that we use in the real world. But software is the only place where we assume that things are going to break within a few months,
kind of
or like as soon as like we just like add this
No,
little.
there's different sorts of software, right? Like to me, the greatest invention ever made was the Voyager spacecraft. That software is still running, right? They're still doing a great job of it, and it was simple, but not simple to make, right? Really, really difficult, and its mission and its payoff was something very well defined, you know. And it's totally different to saying I'm going to make a finance app, you know, or a dating app or one of those sorts of things. That they're just totally different sorts of exercises. And I think the software that is constructed for those solutions is always going to be different and have different specialties to it.
But I think what Vincent's sort of highlighting, like, easy to get a bit cynical, but like, feels like the industry, like that's just the culture of the industry. Like you just assume that you'll rewrite everything like every like 3 to 5 years, and that these things have these like lifetimes, and then it comes and it goes, and like oh, jQuery or whatever it is, like that's so old hat, that's legacy, that's tech debt that needs to be removed. It's like, it's just like assumed, like
if you take that jQuery analogy, right, And if you tried to make the most perfect framework that would suit for that, you'd miss the opportunity. So you wouldn't actually live to fight another day.
Well, what's the opportunity? What's the opportunity
no,
that
but
web
you got
apps
to
have hardly
yeah,
changed
yeah,
in
yeah,
10
yeah.
years?
No. The opportunity is not the technology; it's what the technology is being applied for, right? So your business that you're trying to do to get paid for actually needs to be able to take that opportunity. So you build it in jQuery, and that's good. But if you are still on jQuery now, you're most likely being left behind by all the other things, right? So
Disagree. I completely disagree, because I think this is me getting a bit cranky after being in lockdowns and stuff too long. But like, this has been like, you just look at the web apps today and you're like, does it work on my phone? And it just fails at that task. And you're like, we get paid like megabucks and we can't make it work on like the most popular device in the world. Like, it would be slow. Oh, it can't work on 3G. And you're like, how? Like, what is wrong with this industry?
You've missed the forest for the trees. You're looking at that phone. What a marvelous piece of technology built upon so many bits of software that so many people contribute to. Its capabilities over the last few years is phenomenal.
Yeah, but it all gets ruined by us software developers, because this phone's like as fast as a laptop from 10 years ago, and yet it'll be slow as hell.
No, it's enabled by software. That is a software-powered machine.
Software is a burden. Anyway, that's getting too cynical. But it's just I think that software, there's just been this thing of like software's eating the world, and for me, it's just like gone totally overboard. Just like, oh, every business should be software. I think that's just kind of ridiculous. But that's another topic. Let's go back to what Vincent was talking about. I think part of what happens is, right, these little things that you stitch together, they're not just like little tiny cells. They're not just like nice little cells, and the cells like communicate. Oh, you know, they're like an entire organism, and then you're like trying to like put one organism next to this other organism, like you're trying to stitch a bear next to a big shark, and it's like these things just never going to marry very well.
Yeah.
Like,
but I think like with jQuery, you used jQuery to do a thing, right? With React, you write your application in React.
Yeah,
like your code is a plugin to React versus the library being a thing you're using to facilitate what you're trying to achieve.
Oh man, it's like you've forgotten what jQuery was like. jQuery was the hammer to every problem.
Yeah,
yeah, it was a bit.
There was a reason, there was a reason it got replaced, right? So it's not a discussion we'll get through. Like I still think every problem space has its own unique skill sets and has its own unique solutions. And if you try to apply the solution for one problem space to another, you're not going to succeed, right? And just because you're good at one area and you tried it in something else, doesn't mean you're good at that area either.
Cool. I think that's a natural spot to finish up. I think. What's that? Sorry. Let's do picks. Yeah, let's do picks. I don't think we've done them for a while. So yeah, let's start off with you, Nigel. What's your pick?
So I think in the last few days, all the Strange Loop and Yao videos from the talks all got put online. They are awesome. It's a fantastic resource. So yeah, go and watch those. Those are brilliant. There's so many good ones. Another thing I saw recently was, and this is like yet another standard. There's this file format called Cuddle, KDL, and it's just another take on like what Toml and XAML and Toml and XML and JSON are all trying to do, but it's got quite a nice friendly format. Yeah, I just like the name too, KDL Cuddle.
What are picks, by the way?
Anything you've seen recently that you think's good, that you want to share with the community?
Oh yeah, Bun.js. Like right now, I'm totally like crazy about Bun.js. You know, this is the first time I've tried something, and then off the bat, it pretty much worked. You know, actually no, it's not actually true. It didn't completely work. I still had to minor tweaking, but it was like smart enough that I'm thinking, this is the way it should be. You know, like things. I just install something, it works. That's what I want. Yeah.
Have you used, or have any of you used Bun.js? I've sort of played around with this.
I started looking at it. I use this library called SST, which is for doing serverless It's like wraps around CDK and allows you to deploy serverless resources a lot. And it has really good TypeScript support. And I was like, maybe you can plug Bun into it. And there's chats about it, but there's some bug or missing feature in Bun that just makes it not currently work. And so I started looking at Bun and then I backed out and went, it's not quite ready for me yet.
Yeah, Bun when I looked at it wasn't quite ready as well in comparison to Deno. And so we actually went with Deno to do those small little projects that we had. But yeah, I'm keen to go back and have another look at Bun now that it's sort of evolved up a bit.
Have you looked at Dino, Vincent?
I've started trying Dino at some point, but it seems like it was a different way of programming or like different way of thinking of things.
Yes.
To NPM. So then I don't know. I didn't want to spend so much time like learning about it.
Yeah.
And that's something I like about Bun. Like I didn't really seem to have to learn anything new. It just kind of worked. I don't know. I thought like, you can think of it as if like it's not Bun.js is not a new thing. It's just the patch that fixed everything.
Yeah, the evolution from what you know to going, all those problems are solved. The builds,
it's kind
bits.
Kind of crazy because like in Node they for years like you had require, right, to require another module, require and then a string of name of the module, and then they added import export to JavaScript, like JavaScript language, and then you had to tell Node to be in 2 different modes. Do you want to be in ES mode or Common.js require mode? And so like it just created this like massive fragmentation and confusion in the community. And Bun.js has gone, why not both? Which is kind of crazy. So you can actually have import export in the same file and use require at the same time. So it's like in one way it's like the most unpure, disgusting solution out you could imagine, but it also just works. So that's super interesting.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, like that the thing that you were describing about, Patrick, that's really the one thing that got me stuck for several weeks, like pretty much like just banging my head on the wall on things. And the fact that it solved that, maybe that's the reason why now I really love Bun. It only solved one thing for me, and I thought like, wait, it solves every single thing, but actually I only had one problem, which was pretty much that, like the whole confusion around required and Common.js and all that stuff. But yeah, it's great the way it got solved by.
Oh, I have to keep playing with it. I'm still a little bit burnt out by the JavaScript stuff, but it's definitely interesting. It's definitely a lot of investment in it. So,
any last picks from you, Patrick?
My pick will be this course called Practical Accessibility. It's one of the many courses that I've bought and then spent an hour on and then haven't finished. But it looks really good. It's on sale at the moment. I think the sale ends pretty soon. But if you want to get better at accessibility, it looks like it's from someone with a lot of expertise there. So, yeah.
Course is a way of as giving back to creators as well. Like, because lots of people do it, like Kent Dodds with his React testing library and those things. And I saw that like the mock service worker people just put out a course of their own as well. I'm good at buying courses, but not doing any of them. Just as one giving back.
There can see Dodds
half getting onto it.
He's got I think he said I'm doing promotion for him. He's saying tomorrow he's putting his course on sale. That's called Epic Web, which is sort of the remix, and that it includes the other 2 courses, the React one and the testing one.
So I'll throw a link down for the mock service worker guy. Mock service worker, if you haven't ever used that, really good.
That's probably a good topic for another episode, because I think mock service worker, it's a good solution to a problem, but I am wondering in the future, like, why do we even have this problem? Like, why? Yeah, as we move away from single page apps.
We've got our topic.
We've got our topic.
We're gonna move away from single page apps.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure it's gonna happen, but okay.
What's your just quickly? We should wrap this episode up. But do you think it won't happen because you think it's not a good idea, or because of the industry?
Because really, like, I have to admit, single page app, like, aside from the fact that the implementation makes it like very wonky and everything. It's really a step up from HTML pages where you click on links, it opens like a whole new thing. Like for me, it's a way order of magnitude step up. So I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. But maybe you. I guess I'm thinking that you disagree on that. But yeah.
Oh, it's subtle, but yeah, let's have another episode. And please, Nigel, for your I'd like to invite you along to that discussion.
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to. As long as the schedules work out, I'd be very happy to join.
Cool. I'm sure we can stick with this. All right. Well, yeah, that's a wrap for this episode. And thank you for watching. And yeah, this is awesome.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.
See y'all.